Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, for several months now, I've wanted to talk about Kyoshiro, as we know him now, Denjiro, because I think that there's a lot that Oda has implied but not said. There's some ambiguity, there's some curiosity, which could make you better appreciate perhaps who he is, why he has made the decisions that he has, and what he has to offer in the future of the story. What's unfortunate about this conversation taking place right now is this might not be the best time for it. I honestly should have made this video a month or two ago. I think that the idea would have been better received at that time. It's kind of a difference between how I and others operate. What is currently going on in the story doesn't necessarily matter to me. I think longtime viewers of the channel get this with Big Mom theories, many other kinds of theories as well. Where I'll continue to speculate it even when the theory doesn't look good because I've identified something in the manga which strikes me as off or as wrong that needs an explanation that I figure even if it doesn't look good now, it might come back to it. I find that the very best twists in One Piece, it is incredibly hard to believe them the moment before they are revealed. If this theory is true or not, we're probably going to find out very shortly. I understand this doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement here, but I do believe in this theory. But I do understand how other people may see it. So I just ask that you give it a chance. Hear the video out and let me know what you think at the end. So let's talk about Denjiro. I guess just honestly, I feel like his story is incomplete. Something feels missing. For me, when I first started Wano, I think Kyoshiro and Denjiro had some of the most promise in the entire arc. And as we are at now, a lot of people think that that story is done, which means that this promise fizzled into, for me at least, essentially nothing, other than the reveal that Denjiro was Kyoshiro. I guess the best way to explain this is cost-benefit, or cost-reward. How much time in the story was this character given, and what was the reward, or the payoff? After 60 chapters in Wano, with all the mystery surrounding Kyoshiro, all the potential things that he could do, he was a character that was given a lot of screen time, and even when he wasn't on the screen, he was relevant to the other characters. Overall, Oda's setup created a lot of expectation, and the result of this expectation, the payoff, is the reveal that he was Denjiro. In all honesty, in retrospect, assuming that there is nothing more significant left in his story, Denjiro's role in the story is the same as Kawamatsu. Mysterious character who did not travel 20 years into the future is revealed as Scabbard. Obviously, they held different roles in Wano itself. Kawamatsu was mostly in the prison, where Denjiro became the leader of the Yakuza, but still both of them provided something to the Alliance. Kawamatsu provided weapons, and Denjiro provided men. The difference here is how much time they were given in the story, and their implied significance. Simply stated, Kawamatsu is very much the same as Denjiro, but Oda accomplished the same feat in less time. Cost-benefit. And so when you compare this way, it then makes sense why Denjiro would be disappointing. Now, for me and a lot of other people, he's just kind of a guy. He's just a scabbard, just like all the other scabbards. He gets lumped in with all the rest of them. Many think that he might die, certainly they think the scabbards will lose, and that's just about all he has left to offer to the story. Maybe a heroic moment just like all the other scabbards, maybe he'll say something epic about Wano, the samurai, Oden, or Momonosuke, something like that. That's what's left. But I guess the premise of this theory is that Denjiro is responsible for a lot more than you realized. And Oda's got one more twist left in the story for him. So let's get into it. So as you guys should know, Kyoshiro was revealed as Denjiro in chapter 973, and 2 short chapters later in 975, he officially joined the Alliance in their raid of Onigashima. But a question that I asked to myself at the time that Oda never actually said is, why didn't Denjiro act earlier? I don't mean here revealing himself to the Alliance, because it's heavily implied. It's basically stated that he believed that there was a traitor amongst the scabbards. Kaido had suggested this when they fought him 20 years in the past, and I suppose Denjiro rationalized that there must have been some truth to it. So revealing himself to the scabbards prematurely, he believed would lead to his cover being blown, and he was right. But it also leaves you with the question. Denjiro apparently was the one scabbard, the one person who did not trust all of the other scabbards. He had 20 years to plan. What exactly was his plan for identifying the traitor? Why didn't he act sooner? Why did he do nothing? Obviously, we're going to come back to this, but keep it in the back of your mind. He had many chances to kill Orochi, he never did. He could have potentially organized a better resistance, or developed a more thought-out plan. The Scabbards and Kinemon are operating on a plan that has been created within the last couple months, couple days even. Denjiro's been sitting on these questions for 20 years. So what has this amounted to? Again, I want to reiterate, Denjiro is incredibly intelligent. This is emphasized often when we see him. He was a Scabbard who was trusted with all of the money. In fact, when he's first introduced in his youth, we see him craftily swindle a merchant. This is very similar to him taking it upon himself to infiltrate Orochi's confidences and gain power. He's always been a good liar. I also think that it's interesting that, it's essentially revealed Denjiro did not trust the other Scabbards because he believed there to be a traitor amongst them, but he didn't know who it was. So we're supposed to believe that he trusted the Scabbards to save Wano? And this leads to another curiosity, right? Well, maybe Denjiro's role was to wait patiently and observe the Scabbards, figure out who the traitor was, so that he could help them. He couldn't help them before the traitor was revealed because he was convinced that there was a traitor. Yet in the story, he just happens to appear immediately after Kanjuro revealed his identity. To shoot straight with you guys, I don't believe that this is a coincidence. Denjiro knew the right time to reveal himself. How would he have known that? All of this should lead to the assumption that Denjiro should have had a plan. Yet the dominoes have fallen and Denjiro's contribution to the alliance was 1,200 men. 200 men of the Kyoshiro family and 1,000 samurai who had been caught because Kinemon was betrayed by Kanjuro. You had 20 years. You were in a position of great influence and power above everybody's suspicion, and that was it. I would argue that what Kinemon was able to do in the span of a month is far more than what Denjiro was able to do in 20 years, despite us supposed to be believing that Denjiro is the more intelligent of the two. Guys, even with hindsight, I can't help but feel it's anticlimactic. It's boring, it's generic, it's underwhelming, and an unimportant feat. 1,200 men, none of which seem to be overly significant. That's just how I feel. It doesn't live up to the expectation Oda himself created when he introduced the character. So guys, what I think Oda has not said yet is that the only reason this plan is even successful at all, and it has been successful, is because of Denjiro. So what exactly am I talking about? Obviously guys, this is still just a theory, but it is my belief that the one who pulled the strings behind Yasui's plot, his capture, and his execution was Denjiro. I hope you guys understand that we're about to go mad conspiracy theory mode. But you guys need to understand that to buy this theory at all, you have to believe that Oda still has things left for Denjiro to reveal. And not just things regarding Hiyori. If you think that Denjiro's story is done, you probably will not find this idea very persuasive. But we'll speculate it and then explain it after. So Oda has dedicated time to connecting these characters, sometimes in indirect ways, but I think that it is important. Komurasaki or Hiyori worked under and knew the identity of Denjiro, posing as Kyoshiro. It suggested that the money Hiyori stole from supposed suitors was then given to Denjiro to pass out to Ebisu Town at night as the witching hour boy. We also know that Hiyori was carefully connected to Toko, Yasui's daughter, and that she knew of Yasu's survival, Yasu the daimyo, as well. And to bring this all around, Yasu is also responsible for thieving, like the witching hour boy, and passing out what he had to the people of Ebisu. Oda stopped short of connecting Denjiro to Yasu, but it seems pretty obvious to me that this was the case. All of these people were working together: Toko, Yasu, Hiyori, and Denjiro. And I don't think that at this moment we understand this dynamic fully. There's things left to be revealed about this whole conspiracy, about Hiyori, her motivations, when she's going to show up, what she has done, connection to Denjiro, Denjiro's connection to Yasu. All of this still remains to be important. So let me pose this question. Why has Oda not officially revealed Denjiro's connection to Yasu? Remember, Denjiro was there when Yasu was executed and in part organized it. We are assuming that they were friends and that they worked together. His reaction should be similar to Hiyori's, but obviously he was undercover. Certainly we should come to understand his feelings about Yasu's death. This is something that people did not expect at the time, and a lot of people have forgotten about, but now that Kyoshiro is revealed as Denjiro, the dynamics of the scene totally change. But let's keep going. We have an interesting line between Denjiro and Orochi. Orochi, after having learned about Yasu, the daimyo's survival, ordered the public execution of him, asking Denjiro to set up the TV snails called light scrolls to broadcast it across Wano, and Denjiro said, "It's already taken care of." He knew already that Orochi would order an execution and want it broadcasted. He expected it and prepared for it beforehand. This is the man that we are dealing with. He knows people, he understands them, he can predict them. I would then think it's fair to assume that he also expected the light scrolls to backfire on Orochi. Because of his connection to Yasu, he knew what Yasu would do, probably. Or maybe he was the one who planned it. I want you to think about this for a moment. Denjiro for sure was responsible for the death of Komurasaki. Komurasaki's death then led the people of Wano to be interested in this moment, in this execution, in this funeral. And then Yasu turned himself in on this very same day. And Denjiro prepared the broadcast even before Orochi ordered it. It's all very convenient. We're just gonna go. Denjiro organized Yasu's execution. Denjiro himself organized the capture of Yasu and had him claimed to be the witching hour boy. Curiously, maybe Yasu here claimed to be Denjiro. They just didn't know that. He created the change of plans, credited to Yasu. He also knew that Kinemon would misread them, because he can predict people he knows well. Predicting Kinemon is no different than predicting Orochi. He knows them equally well. And he also knew that the other scabbards would follow Kinemon's interpretation and his lead, because it just seems accepted that Kinemon is the leader. I suppose because he was the first retainer. In turn, he knew that Kinemon would mislead the traitor, allowing for the real plan to go accordingly, without Orochi being aware of it and sabotaging it. So basically what I'm saying is that the whole reason the plan succeeded was because Kanjo did not report this to Orochi, because Denjiro intended for that to be the case. He knew exactly how to trick Kinemon, so that Kinemon would trick the traitor. And on a related note here, I guess, he also knew that Kinemon would not change his plans even after he knew that they were revealed. So after he joined the alliance, he sorta nudged Kinemon to make him realize you can't stick with the same plan. His whole spiel about saying that Kinemon galaxy-brained everybody is a lie. Denjiro knew Kinemon the longest, longer than any other scabbard, and all the other scabbards also knew that there's no way that Kinemon was that smart. Denjiro just took it a step further. He knows that Kinemon is an idiot. If you reread this conversation with this in mind, I think that you get a great sense of just how manipulative Denjiro actually is. He also had Yasu in his final moments undermine Orochi's credibility, so that no one would believe his suspicions of the return of the scabbards. If you guys noticed, Denjiro had been doing this for a while. When he is first introduced in the story, he's drunk inside of a geisha house, and he's just to himself talking about how much of a coward Orochi is. How he sees scabbard shadows in every corner. We know that's not legitimate because Denjiro is a scabbard. Pretending he's too drunk to know what he's saying. Pretending that he doesn't know that people are listening. I want you guys to understand just how smart and how manipulative he must be in order to do this on purpose. Denjiro is creating these rumors. He is intentionally well ahead of the fact undermining Orochi's credibility so that no one will listen to him. So let's keep going. Guys, I think that he knew that Orochi would be overconfident in the intel that he had received from the traitor, because why wouldn't he be? He had a traitor and no one suspected it. Denjiro knew Orochi well and knew that as a last aha moment would reveal the traitor to the scabbards in his moment of victory, which was actually not a victory. So when Denjiro arrived and joined the alliance, just when he did, just after Kanjo revealed himself, no risk was uncalculated. He expected to discover the traitor in this moment because he had set it up. His perfectly timed arrival was no coincidence. I'm about to get crazy, guys, so I want you to stay with me. These Straw Hats, Nami, Robin, and Brook, were responsible for saving Toko at around the same time that Denjiro killed Komurasaki. They then took Toko to the brothel Denjiro owns. I would say it's pretty convenient that after this, Yasu discovers the location of many members of the Alliance. My guess is that he had them tracked, either after Toko encountered them with the soba noodle incident, or after they saved her and then sent her to his brothel. Yasu's excuse for discovering the Alliance was that they were being loud, But I do think that this was also a lie, and I do find it curious how secretive Yasu was about how he discovered their location. I think it was around this time that Denjiro confirmed who Kinemon had brought with him and what their plans exactly were. Let's keep going. Denjiro knew of where Zoro was because of Yasu, who had accompanied him earlier. Let's connect another character, Onimaru, the fox. Denjiro had Onimaru steal Zoro's sword while traveling with Yasu and lead him to Ringo and the weapons the Alliance would eventually need to outfit their army. This could have happened one of two ways. Onimaru could be directly connected to Denjiro. Denjiro could have found him and then become aware of the cache of swords. On the other hand, Denjiro could be aware of this, have not made himself known to Onimaru, but instead suggested to Onimaru that Zoro had Shusui, because he would have known this because Yasu was traveling with him. The purpose being to manipulate him to lead him to the cache. I think it's probably important to say here, the story has you believe that Onimaru was collecting these swords because he was inspired by Kawamatsu, but even Kawamatsu comments after seeing all the weapons Onimaru collected. He says, but why are there so many now? Was it Onimaru? No, this had to be human work. I think that Denjiro is in some way related to Onimaru, and at the very least, on purpose sent swords for Onimaru to collect, either by giving them to him directly or sending enemies for him to defeat, and doing what he could in order to protect him and his stash. Even now, Onimaru remains secretive. But here's another thing that Hiyori said which caught my attention. She was talking about the scabbards to Zoro. She says, the others are Kawamatsu, who I just described, and then Denjiro and Ashura Doji. I don't know where any of them are or if they're still alive and well, but the entire capital is in an uproar over this symbol now, so I am certain that they will appear. Guys, if you read between the lines here, Hiyori is essentially saying that she expects these scabbards who have not yet joined the Alliance to reveal themselves to go find the other scabbards now that the plan has leaked. This would not only be true of Kawamatsu and Ashura Doji, but true of any samurai in Wano who had not yet heard that there was a plan. Maybe it's better that the plan first fail and be leaked. Is this what Hiyori is hinting? The plan being leaked to Orochi is not necessarily a bad thing. Which then begs the question, did Denjiro anticipate Kinemon's plan failing? Well, that's not too much of a stretch, because Denjiro suspected that there was a traitor. Denjiro anticipated Kinemon failing and accounted for it in his plan. One last thing before we move on, guys. Did you ever wonder why didn't Yasu ever explain his note to the Alliance? He conceived it, he turned himself in clearly on purpose. He somehow handed out this note to everybody, supposedly, but he never explained it to the Alliance. He had the opportunity to do so, and he chose not to. Was it because he wanted Kinemon to misread it? Because that's what Denjiro expected. But I don't want to get too bogged down in the details, guys. The point is that I think that Denjiro planned for and prepared for literally everything. He galaxy-brained everybody. That was his real contribution to the Alliance, one that, as of yet, has not been revealed officially. So if all of this is the case, guys, why don't we know this already? Why hasn't Denjiro revealed what he has accomplished? The plan worked. We're here. Why didn't Denjiro tell everybody? I mean, I guess you could argue, well, there's little point in undermining Kinemon's authority at this stage. They need that confidence, perhaps. But I think that it's also important to characterize it in this way. Denjiro killed Yasu. That was part of the plan, for the greater good. This is the way of the samurai, self-sacrifice. I'm just gonna throw this out here, guys. After Yasu's death, Zoro proclaimed that he would avenge Yasu's death. But what if he discovers the one responsible for this was Denjiro? As I said before, guys, to me something is off about Denjiro. After Oden died, Denjiro disappeared. He went into hiding until finally emerging as what he called himself as Kyoshiro the Mad. That isn't a name he created to act cool or be edgy. I think that the man is legitimately mad and not just angry. He's insane. Why else would he call himself that? But it was just about here, this panel. After this panel, I cannot ignore the fact that Kyoshiro calls himself the Mad. Look at Denjiro's face after he ties up Sasaki. The only way that I can describe the way his face looks in this panel is sinister. A face he makes when nobody is looking. I think that this is the real Denjiro. Denjiro the Scarred. Denjiro the mad, Denjiro the unbalanced. The Scabbards don't know who he really is now, and he's not letting them find out. Not yet. But the fact that he is this way is going to be important. I want to make this very clear. I don't think that Denjiro is the Alliance's enemy. I don't think that he's going to purposefully betray them. I don't think that he has reason to. Their objectives are the same. So this is not where this theory is going, necessarily. But I think that you have to admit that Denjiro has a lot of comparable attributes to a guy like Arlong or Doflamingo. I think that he is filled with hate. Hate for Orochi and Kaido, in a way that far surpasses any of the other Scabbards in Momonosuke. For me, this whole scenario is fascinating. It's perhaps the first time ever that I think that the Strats are fighting with a villain. A guy who would do anything for revenge. A guy who, under any normal circumstances, would need to be defeated first. Excluding people that these Straw Hats have already defeated, and those who are playing the role of spy. I believe that we should be asking some questions. Kyoshiro has posed as the leader of the Yakuza for 20 years. He has been the acting hand of Orochi's justice, essentially the police force in Wano. How much innocent blood is on his hands? How many people has he unjustly killed? How many people has he unjustly enslaved? What exactly has he been willing to do in order to maintain his cover and reach this moment? I assume that this is purposeful. It's the exact opposite of Luffy. And I think recently in the story, Oda has been emphasizing this. As Luffy is passing all of these battles on the way to Kaido, it requires Jinbei and Sanji to follow him to ensure he doesn't help everybody else. Because Luffy cares about all of these people. He can't stomach their suffering when he can do something about it. He can't abandon them when they need help. Luffy does want to win, but he won't do anything for it. Luffy constantly puts himself in harm's way because of this, like punching the celestial dragon to save Kami, like attacking Kaido's men when he sees innocent people suffering. The prudent call is to let evil people be evil and pick your battles like law. But Luffy cannot do this, and I think obviously enough, Luffy's mentality is right, and Denjiro is the opposite. Denjiro is like law, but perhaps even more extreme. Guys, this concept was directly alluded to earlier in Wano, as we see Laws with other members of the Strats, and he tells them, if you get captured, kill yourself, and Usopp says straight up, that's not an order Luffy would give. And just after this, there are people screaming people need help. Sanji wants to save them, and Law tells him to leave them to their fate. It's the philosophical difference between Law and Luffy. This very same philosophical difference exists between Denjiro and Kinemon. I think that Oda is doubling up on it because he's going to go somewhere with it. This is a very huge theme within this arc. Another character to talk about that is very relevant is Shinobu. Upon learning that Law's crew had been captured, do you know what she says? Oda did this on purpose. She said, eliminate those who had been captured. This is the common way of things in the ninja world. This is so totally opposite of Luffy, it's striking. As it turns out, guys, most villains in the story of One Piece are more complicated than maybe initially meets the eye. They're human. They are flawed. Something happened which changed them, which mutated them into something that must be defeated. Denjiro actually follows the pattern. He has a reason to be mad. His mentality and existence can be justified. Yet to win at all costs and hold this level of hatred within has always been wrong in the world of One Piece. Guys, you could compare Denjiro to somebody like Akainu. I think that to say that Denjiro follows his own version of absolute justice might be factual. He is willing to defeat what he would define as evil at any cost. So then Denjiro's current existence therefore is wrong, even if he's fighting on the side of the good guys. I think another very purposeful example is that of Oden himself. Oden had the opportunity to defeat Orochi and Kaido. Kaido admitted that if Oden had decided to attack them immediately upon arriving to Wano, that he probably would have won. But Oden chose not to take this opportunity, because that path involved Orochi executing hundreds of Wano's own innocent citizens. Perhaps the prudent thing to do would have been to defeat them there, accept the casualties in the moment, and save lives over the next 20 years, but Oden didn't believe in that. He was just the same as Luffy.
with people in front of him to save, logic and tactics and victory did not matter. He would do everything in his power to save those people, even at the cost of victory. Guys, Oda is not done with this. In the very last chapter of One Piece, this idea was confirmed. Shinobu asks Yamato to sacrifice her and save Momonosuke. And do you know what Yamato said? Oden would never do that. I am just telling you that the story will find a way to prove Oden right and Shinobu and Denjiro wrong. Denjiro has spent 20 years in Wano doing the exact opposite. And as we speculated in this theory, we have a very important example of this right in the middle of the arc with Yasu's death, which was planned, perhaps considered a necessary sacrifice. Guys, there is a moral here. I think that there is no chance that we leave Wano without Denjiro being exposed, and Oda suggesting through the events in the story what is right and what is wrong. I suppose that the question that I've left you guys with that I haven't yet addressed is, what exactly is this moment going to be like in the story when we find out that Denjiro is wrong, that he has done all these amazing things, but philosophically, he doesn't follow Oden? I've spent a good long while thinking about the last part of this video. It honestly takes me about 15 minutes in order to precisely speculate my thoughts on this matter because it relates to Zoro's abilities, it relates to Buddhism in One Piece, Buddhism within Wano. It speculates it so in depth it feels wrong because we just don't know enough to be that specific. So I'm just going to leave you with the spark notes. I think that Oda may have a very good explanation for how and why Denjiro's face and his appearance changed. I think that as a Buddhist might say, Denjiro is unbalanced. We know that Zoro learned his sword techniques from Koshiro, and that Koshiro connects to Wano, so culturally Zoro is from Wano. I think that there might be a downside to using Zoro's techniques, and we might see this downside through Denjiro. Like what would happen when an Ashura transformation went wrong? Or what would happen when a person is not in control and uses a cursed sword? Oda brought up the cursed swords at the very beginning of Wano. That's a Chekhov's gun. That's a little piece that's placed early in the arc, which is clearly going to have more relevance, more importance at some point in time. We're 100 chapters in and we still haven't gotten there. But in simplest terms, I think that it's possible that Denjiro goes berserk, totally out of control, and that becomes a problem. And it's by using this as a jumping off point that Oda can better explain Denjiro, what he has done, and why he's wrong. But anyway, guys, I know it's been a while since my last official, fully edited theory video, but I wanted to do it right. I don't like repeating the same speculations, and I want to talk about things that I'm actually, excited to talk about. So yeah, I really appreciate all of you that made it to the end of the video and enjoyed it. Or if you didn't enjoy it and you made it to the end of the video, mad respect for that too. As always, like the video or dislike the video, just let me know what you think in the comments below. Remember to be subscribed and click the bell if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.